what the fuck is your problem? And what are you driving at? I don't get it. What do you want to do? Make a bigger deal of menopause? Make a lesser deal of menopause? I do think that, well, the research that I am familiar with, that I've gone through on aging, is that the two most important factors on a vital age are purposes and projects and bonds of intimacy, work and love, which is what Freud always said. But do you necessarily have to work at 50 or 60 or 70 as you did at 30? Do you necessarily have to love at 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 as you did at 30? And the answer, of course, is no. You know, that it evolves. It evolves. And, I mean, there is research shows that, you know, that the bonds of intimacy, which are very important for a vital age, are no longer necessarily marriage. You know, it's who you can be yourself with, who you can let it all hang out with. Who can you really open yourself to? Who can you really share with? Who can you touch and be touched by? And I think we're just beginning to even approach the right questions about all that. Instead of trying to ape youth. Instead of assuming that youth is the peak. That youth is the end all and the be all, and it isn't. It isn't. What's important to you now? And, you know, what relationships nourish you, sustain you, challenge you, excite you. And if bonds of intimacy are one of the most important attributes of a vital age, how do you open yourself to move to deeper intimacy with those you love or let love you? It comes to my mind when I was teaching, I gave my students an assignment about, well, given this 7 or 8 year difference in the life expectancy of women and men, you know, what should be the perspective of the woman over 50? Because more and more the men will be dead or doddering. So I remember one of my students, well, they could become lesbians, they could share, they could give up sex altogether, or become skilled in masturbation, you know. And none of these perspectives seemed very exciting to my students. And we haven't, you know, gone very far in developing any of them either. Like, given the difference in the life expectancy of women and men, in a way, it would work out better if after 50, 2 women shared 1 man. Of course, the poor man would probably get awfully overworked, you know, I don't know how he can produce all that. His erections, he'd have to take a lot of Viagra. Uh, but the woman would have someone else to talk to, and men are not so great about talking to anyway. So, who knows? Who knows? Oh, I don't know. I think it becomes, it becomes less important. I mean, sex was originally programmed into us for reproduction. Well, now we have sex for pleasure. But, uh, and in this country, at least, where so many products are sold, purportedly increasing your sexuality or your sexual charms or your sexual quotas. It's part of the excess focus on youth. I don't think yet we've had enough or even very much imagery or conceptualization or thought about sexuality after 40, after 50, after 60, after 70, after 80, whatever. The building I live in, it was just an invitation to a birthday party for a man who's 100. He's going to be 100.
Wow.
And it's not the first such invitation. I mean, people are just living longer. Now, I think that the focus on sexuality does have to change with age, First of all, of course, it's no longer linked to reproduction at all. But even the pleasurable parts of it, that I think there is a human need for touching, but that probably does express itself differently as women and men age. I don't know. Women age better. I mean, they just do. First of all, they live longer. They live 7 years longer. And in their later ages, they're healthier. It may be because women were never brought up to be macho. So they don't hold on to measurements or aspirations or even views of themselves that become very vulnerable with age. And women, first because of their biology, then because of their kids and this and that, they become very responsive to change. And men get sort of program themselves, get programmed, and then it's all mainly the job, the work, the success, the ambition, and then you retire. And women have a much more complex definition of themselves. And, more in a way, the women's movement and all of that, so women demanding equal opportunity with men, and women sort of finding themselves or asserting themselves. And many women, in fact, are quite liberated by widowhood. And they discover abilities in themselves, that they didn't know that they had. At least women have previous generations. Younger generations, it may not be so. But what about men? I mean, you go back and look at the fact women live, say, 7 years longer than men. They are healthier in age than men. So I was invited to speak at a conference. I think it was the Western Gerontological, something like that. And I sort of called my speech, men have to be learn to be more like women. Well, it's not a popular speech. The women told me that the men were very threatened.
Why?
Well, I wasn't wearing my feminist hat. I wasn't. Well, they didn't. I think that men, they're macho. They just can't admit not always being less than dominant, superior, aggressive, assertive. Women roll with the punches more. The macho hero is kind of getting obsolete, and there is more positive gradient on sensitivity among men. They even have sensitivity training for executives. But macho is no longer a good word. It's a fact. And I mean, it's a very interesting development that there should begin to be sensitivity training for executives. Now, counter to that, or maybe just parallel to that, women demanding the opportunities of men. But I think that may be what equality is all about. That women and men have the same opportunities, equal opportunities, to develop themselves and succeed in professions that have so far been male-defined. And this equal opportunities to develop the sensitivities to their own bodies, to their children's bodies, to life in general, that only women used to be socialized for before. They need to become more sensitive. They need to become more conscious, more aware of what is going on in their own bodies and souls, and women and children and between them. There really hasn't been a lot of talk, a lot of imagery, a lot of research on intimacy and age, intimacy among older people. I mean, I think that may change, that as our whole population ages, you're bound to get more imagery of love in age, of sex in age, of adventure in age, of knowledge in age, of strengths in age as well as weaknesses, of possible evolutions as well as devolution. But now, it's not happening yet, I don't think, at least not to any degree. The women are not marching the way they did 20 years ago. Well, of course they're not. A lot of the things we've asked for and we marched for 20 years ago, we've won. They're in society now. So now we're sort of having to, our daughters, our granddaughters are having to make it work. You know, work and family, profession and family, success, nurture, uh, and you know, like so long there was this push, women demand, want, need equal opportunity to men. Okay, that was certainly necessary. But now I think we have to look at men and say, men need and have to learn to want uh, some of the qualities that enhance intimacy and nurture and sensitivity that used to be specialized in women. Well, men have got to move. Women can't do it for them. So it's not me that's going to say it, you know what I mean? In other words, there's got to be men coming up who think about this and I think it's going to happen. I think it may be happening in a way. I mean, macho is no longer a very good thing. It's not a compliment. It's not a compliment to call a man macho. It's like in almost saying he's obsolete. He's a dinosaur.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is the new, model male role model? I don't know. I don't know. We're on the cusp, probably. But you do see, even in the U.S. at least, you see it on the street, men carrying the baby in the backpack. I love that. I love seeing the daddies with the little kids. And you do see it more and more. And that is the other half of it. That's the corollary of women dressing for success and getting the jobs and the opportunities and so on and so forth. So how will it end up? Probably a kind of a blurring of the roles. And maybe each couple defining it a little differently for themselves.